The scalpel slipped from my fingers, clattering against the steel tray like a gunshot in the sterile silence of the OR. "Roman, talk to me." Theodore's voice cut through the fog, his hand steady on my shoulder. But I couldn't look up, couldn't tear my eyes from the twin monitors showing two hearts I'd know anywhere, faltering under the weight of decades-old secrets. At 14, they'd signed my death certificate without a body, convinced I'd drown my shame in the Hudson after they called me an abomination. Now, at 32, I was slicing into theirs, praying my hands wouldn't betray the boy they buried alive. It started in the rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn, back when the world still felt like it could hold you if you just believed hard enough. I was Roman Alvarez then, the kid with the two big dreams and the sketchbook full of boys who looked like the heroes in those old Hollywood musicals. Mom, Elena, worked double shifts at the diner, her laughter like warm tortillas on Sunday mornings, and Dad, Carlos, fixed cars in a garage that smelled of oil and regret, his calloused hands the only ones that ever tossed a baseball with me without making it a lesson in manhood. We were the American dream wrapped in a cramped walk-up. Puerto Rican roots tangled with red, white, and blue flags, fire escapes blooming with geraniums, and the distant wail of sirens that promised the city would always wake you up. But dreams crack like sidewalks under too many boots. I was 13 when I first kissed Jamie Ruiz behind the bleachers at PS 112. His braces catching on my lip, tasting like spearmint gum and forbidden fireworks. It wasn't fireworks. It was terror, sweet and sharp, the kind that makes you run home buzzing, only to choke on it when your father's eyes narrow over dinner. "Mijo, you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I nodded, shoving rice around my plate, but ghosts have a way of whispering louder. By 14, the whispers turned to screams. I'd stolen a glance at the lifeguard at Coney Island. Bronze skin, easy smile, and Mom caught me. Not the glance, but the linger, the way my breath hitched. She didn't yell at first. She waited until Dad came home, her voice a knife wrapped in silk. "Carlos, our boys." Confused. Like those shows on TV, the ones with the parades. Confused. That's what they called it, as if loving boys was a math problem I could solve with enough eraser dust. Dad's face went granite, his fists clenching around his beer. "No son of mine. Not in this house. Not in America where men are men." The fight spilled into the night. Words like shrapnel. Faggot? Disgrace? What did we do wrong? I packed a duffel with my sketchbook, a hoodie, and the $20 from mowing lawns, slipping out the fire escape while they argued in the kitchen. The subway rattled me to the edge of the city, to the George Washington Bridge, where the wind howled like it knew my name. I climbed the railing, the Hudson below a black mirror reflecting every ugly word they'd hurled. "Jump," it seemed to say. "End it clean." My phone buzzed. "Mom. Come home, Roman. We can pray it away." Pray it away. As if God hadn't wired me this way from the start. I didn't jump. Not quite. The fall was half-hearted. A slip into the icy current that swallowed me whole. They found my sneakers on the walkway, the duffel snagged in the rocks downstream, empty of anything but lint. The cops called it suicide. The papers ran a blurry school photo with tragic loss. Local teen succumbs to bullying. Mom sobbed on the news. Dad stared at the camera like he'd been hollowed out. They held a funeral in Our Lady of Perpetual Help. An open casket with a wax dummy that looked nothing like me, too pale, too still. Friends from school showed up, Jamie with red eyes and a carnation, whispering, he was special. Special. That's what we called it back then, before labels stuck like tar. But I didn't die. A fisherman hauled me from the shallows, half drowned, ribs cracked like wishbones. The ER docs patched me up, no questions asked. Runaways were a dime a dozen in New York. I gave a fake name, Theo Ramirez, after the patron saint of lost causes. Foster care chewed me up for a year, bouncing between group homes in the Bronx, where the nights were alive with roaches and regrets. I learned to fight with words instead of fists, buried myself in library books on anatomy, dreaming of bodies that didn't break. Hearts, specifically, pumping away secrets, mending what minds couldn't. Med school was my resurrection. Columbia on a full ride, scraping by on ramen and ambition. dissecting cadavers under fluorescent hums that drowned out the echoes of abomination. I aced cardio, my hands steady as a surgeon's prayer, visualizing valves and ventricles like puzzles God left unsolved. "You're a natural, Alvarez," my prof said, not knowing the irony. Roman Alvarez was dead. Theo Ramirez was the ghost who graduated top of his class, residency at Mount Sinai, fellowship in cardiothoracic surgery. By 28, I was Dr. Ramirez, the wunderkind with the golden touch, saving Wall Street execs and bodega owners alike. Hearts in my hands, literally, pulsing, fragile things that begged for mercy. That's where Theodore came in. Theo Hale, tall, lanky, with freckles like constellations across his nose and eyes the color of October leaves. He was the anesthesiologist on my first solo valve repair. His drawl pure Savannah transplanted to the Big Apple, murmuring, "Easy now, document. Let the river run smooth." We collided over post-op coffee in the hospital atrium. Him sketching caricatures of the nurses on napkins, me laughing for the first time since the bridge. "You draw like you were born holding a scalpel," I said, and he grinned, all teeth and trouble. "Nah, I was born holding a banjo. But you look at hearts like they're sonnets." It wasn't love at first incision. It was a slow bleed. Late nights in the call room, sharing takeout from the halal cart. Him tracing the scars on my wrists. Faint rivers from the Hudson's grip. I told him bits. The funeral they'd faked, the parents who'd erased me. "They didn't bury you, Roman," he said, using my real name like a key. "They buried their fear. You're the one who rose." Theo was my anchor. Queer as a $3 bill, out since high school, with a tattoo of Audre Lorde on his ribcage. "Your silence will not protect you." We moved in together in a loft in Williamsburg, walls lined with his watercolors and my textbooks, the bed a tangle of limbs and whispers. "I love you," he'd say after. Not in the heat but in the quiet. His head on my chest, listening to the rhythm I'd sworn to protect. Betrayal has a way of creeping up like arrhythmia. It was a Tuesday in July, the kind where the AC wheezes and the city sweats, when the ER paged me for a double emergent. Husband and wife, mid-50s, myocardial infarctions sinking like a cruel duet. I scrubbed in, mask fogging with the chill of recognition. Elena and Carlos Alvarez, charts in hand, faces gaunt under the ear lights. Mom's hair streaked gray, Dad's hands trembling without their usual grease. They'd aged into strangers, but the lilt in her voice as she mumbled to the nurses, "Ay, Dios, make it quick," was the same one that used to sing me to sleep. Theodore caught my flinch. "You know them?" he asked, gloving up beside me. I nodded, throat tight. "Worse. They're mine." The room spun, conflict crashing like waves. Operate, and I'd save the monsters who'd killed me. Walk away, and I'd be the boy on the bridge again, unfinished. Ethics board be damned. I was lead surgeon, and this was fate's sick joke. "Roman," Theo murmured, his eyes locking mine over the drapes. "You're not 14 anymore. You're the one with the power now." The surgery stretched into eternity. 8 hours of clamps and sutures, monitors screaming codes like accusations. Dad went first. Aortic aneurysm, a ticking bomb from years of chain-smoking regret. I cracked his sternum. The bone saws whine a echo of that fire escape creak. His heart lay bare, scarred and stubborn, valves fluttering like trapped birds. "Steady," Theo breathed, dosing propofol, his free hand brushing mine under the table. A lifeline in latex. I repaired the graft, stitching life back into the man who'd called me dead, whispering, "You taught me to fix things, Pops. Remember." Mom was the climax, the storm's eye. Her ventricles were shot, congestive failure from untreated hypertension, the kind that drowns you from the inside. As I lifted her heart, small, fierce, still beating against my palms, memories flooded. Her rosary beads clicking during my confessions, the way she'd hug me after nightmares. "I'm sorry, Mommy," I choked, tears salting my mask. "For running, for not fighting harder." The betrayal hit then, not theirs but mine. I'd let them grieve a ghost, built a life on the lie of Theo Ramirez. What if I'd come back? What if forgiveness was just another incision? Theo saw it all, his voice a rock. Breathe, love. You've got this. We've got this. He adjusted the ventilator, our eyes meeting in the reflection of the retractor, partners in more than the ore. I bypassed the blockage, rerouting rivers of blood. My hands steady because of him. Because of us. Alarms blared. Flatline flicker. And the room erupted. Nurses swarming. Theo calling. Paddles now! I shocked her myself. The jolt arcing through us all. Her chest arching like resurrection. Then, beep. Steady. Alive. Post-op in the dim recovery ward. I unmasked first. Theo waited outside, giving me the space, but I felt his presence like a second pulse. Dad woke groggy, eyes sharpening on me. You look like. Mom stirred beside him, her hand finding his. Roman? Mi hijo? The word shattered me. Son, after all these years. I knelt between the beds, taking their hands, mine still smelling of iodine and mercy. It's me. I didn't die. I just had to become someone else. The flood came. Apologies in sobs, explanations in fragments. They'd searched, they swore. Private eyes, missing posters faded on poles. Guilt had eaten them hollow. The church prayers turned to therapy sessions, the diner shifts to night classes in understanding. We were wrong, Dad rasped, voice cracking like old leather. Scared idiots in a world that hates us all. Mom wept, tracing my face. We buried our boy, but God gave him back. A doctor. Our doctor. Theo slipped in then, quiet as dawn, his arm around my waist. A silent vow. This is Theodore, I said, pride swelling. My partner. The one who kept my heart beating. They blinked, processed, then Mom smiled, weak but real. Like Jamie? From school. Laughter bubbled, absurd and healing. Dad nodded at Theo. Take care of him, yeah? Better than we did. We didn't rush the mending. Rehab visits turned to family dinners in the loft. Theo's gumbo bridging old wounds with spice. I dropped Ramirez, reclaimed Alvarez on my badge. The past a scar that itched but didn't bleed. Betrayal's sting faded into something human. Flawed love, the kind America sells but rarely delivers. On clear nights, we'd walk the bridge. Not to jump, but to stand, hands linked, watching the river reflect a city that holds its ghosts close. In the end, hearts aren't just muscle and vein. They're ledgers of what we've broken and begged to fix. Mine beat steady now, held not in their hands, but shared with Theo's, the man who saw the boy in the surgeon, the life in the lie. And as for Mom and Dad, they live, laughing at my bad jokes, cheering my cases from afar. I hold their hearts still, in every embrace, every call, literally once, forever now.